Good.
Some of you are still sleeping this morning because you were out partying last night, right? Las Vegas. But not you. You're all here. Did you have fun last night? Yeah. How can you not have fun in Vegas? I got to thank Eric. One of the beautiful things about our profession is that there's so much amazing training, inspiration, and opportunity to grow and learn in this profession. And there's probably no one in the entire network marketing profession that provides more value basically for free through the interviews, through his website than Eric Worre. And my team benefits from that. And I want to thank you, Eric. Yeah. I mean, I could do a whole seminar on just how great our profession is. And if people really knew, everyone would be in network marketing if they really knew the value that this profession provides. And the outcome of plugging in is a great residual income. And where else can you work part-time for a few years, grow, learn, be around fun people, and develop a residual income that will set you free financially? I just don't know where else you could get that, but in this profession. Every other thing that provides a residual income is not really a residual income. If you build this business right, you'll end up with beach money. You'll end up with a constant flow of revenue that will come in whether you go to work or not. And that promise is real for our profession if you build it correctly. If it constantly requires your attention, then you'll never have beach money. So before I get into my talk here, where's my clicker? There it is. Before I get into my talk, I want to share with you what I believe is the reason why more people don't make money in network marketing, whether it be $5,000 a month, $10,000, or $100,000 a month or more. If you were to go back into the early 1900s, before 1904, let's say 1901, and you talked to 1,000 people, and you said to 1,000 people, is it possible to fly? What would they all tell you? There's no way. It's not possible to fly. That's fantasy. That's not real. There might be two crazy people that said it's possible to fly, right? Two crazies. But most of them would say, no, it's not possible. Well, there were a few people in the world. Two of them were Orville and Wilbur Wright, that decided that it was possible. And because they believed it was possible with no evidence, they took unbelievable ridicule and risked their lives. If you've ever seen any of the films of them trying to fly, they risked their lives every day trying to fly. But they believed it was possible, and the result of that is today, we walk onto a jumbo jet and we complain because the air conditioner is too cold. Or we get on our computer and we send emails now from our airline seat. I don't think Orville and Wilbur had that in mind when they invented the airplane. But because they believed it was possible, they took action, and they risked their lives, and they faced ridicule. Now today, in this world, there are millions of people that make $100,000 a month. In the world, millions that make $100,000 a month. Yet if you take a cross-section of the general population and you say, is it possible to make $100,000 a month? Out of 1,000 people, how many would say yes? Maybe. Is it possible? Maybe 10 or maybe 20 out of 1,000 would say it's possible. But until you believe it's possible, you won't do the work. You won't take the ridicule. You're not going to risk your life. But until you believe, so 20 people out of 1,000. Now, if you ask those 20, how many of you believe it's possible for you? I had this conversation with Eric and a group of leaders on a retreat. And we talked about this. Out of 20 people, how many out of 20 would say it's possible for them to make $100,000 a month? 2? So 2 out of 1,000 people in our society, where millions of people have already made $100,000 a month, 2 out of 1,000 believe it's possible, and they're the ones that take the action. And that's why so few people make money in network marketing. Because the majority of 1,000 people don't even believe they can make $5,000 a month in network marketing. That's why. It's pretty simple. And you know what? Orville and Wilbur had no evidence. You do not need evidence. Some of you in this room joined companies where no one had made money before and you made money. I joined a company where nobody had ever made $10,000 a month in that company, but everybody's looking for evidence. Is anybody making money? Doesn't matter. Orville and Wilbur invented the airplane, and there was no evidence. You don't need evidence. You don't even have to have ever done it before. The only thing you have to do is believe it's possible. That's it. And then go do the work. It's not too bad, is it? What an opportunity that is. So I'm going to talk about leveraging the power of networking groups. I'll start off with a story. So when I joined my last company, and I didn't join it to build it as a business, I was invited to a networking group. I'd never been to a networking group before. I didn't even know what they were. A friend invited me to a networking group. It was BNI, Business Network International. Now, if you've heard of BNI before, and you may already have an opinion about it, or you might already know what it is, I'd like you to, for right now, just set aside what you know BNI to be, because I'm going to expand your vision and help to talk to you about it in a little bit bigger perspective. But BNI is Business Network International. It's the largest privately held networking organization in the world. There's about 4,000 chapters in the world. Ivan Meisner is the founder of that company. They're not network marketing. They're a business networking where everybody gets together and there's one person from each profession that joins. And you have to apply and they have to accept you into the chapter, and it's about $300 a year. Well, I went there and I was not sure yet whether I was going to build my current company, the company that I'm involved in right now. I wasn't sure if I'm going to build it, but I went there with that in mind. There were 12 people, which was one of the smallest chapters in the entire world of that organization out of the 4,000 chapters in Arizona, Scottsdale, Arizona. And what they did is they went around and everybody introduced themselves, and they got to me, and I was like, what do I do? And I happened to have some of our product with me. It's easy to carry around with me, and so I was sitting there, and when they got to me, I did a 60-second commercial, because that's what they asked me to do. I just basically explained what I did, what our company did. And then I passed my product around the room. I just passed it around. I was a guest. Afterwards, I had a couple people come over to me and hand me their business card and say, I want to learn more about that. Well, wow, that's kind of cool. And that's kind of how it started. And I started thinking to myself, and I joined the chapter, and I went back every week. Every single week I was there, and I did my commercial. And within a matter of time, I started signing up people in the chapter, but I also started getting referrals and giving referrals to the others. There was someone that I knew that wanted to have their house painted, and so I referred them to the house painter that was in the group. And there was somebody that I knew that needed a new accountant, and I referred somebody to the accountant in the group. So I started giving to the group opportunities for them to get more business. And I started appreciating them as well, and I started getting referrals. And before I knew it, half the group was using my product. And then over a period of months, all the group was using my product because they trusted me, and I talked about the product every week. It was like it was a business presentation. I didn't talk about my opportunity, but it was a business presentation where I could talk about the product, and they wanted to hear about it. And we grew, and we developed relationships. So I started thinking, 4,000 chapters. What if on my weekly conference call, when I started with my company, my weekly conference call had 3 people on it. Today it has thousands of people on it. But what if on my conference call, with those 3 people, I just say, you guys should find a BNI chapter. It's an opportunity to meet some new people and get to know some people and refer some people and help some people. And you might end up with some customers and maybe some distributors. So I started referring them to other chapters of that organization. Within a year, my organization was in 250 BNI chapters. And it was growing like crazy. Today, Eric mentioned $30,000 a month. It's probably around $30,000 a month, but the majority of that money is not coming from the people from BNI. Can anyone tell me why? It started in BNI. So can anybody tell me why, if it's the BNI, the Business Network International, and I was in 250 chapters, and I'm referring my team into those chapters, some of them are signing up for customers, probably from BNI, I might be making $5,000 or $10,000 a month, maybe $5,000 to $8,000 a month. But the people they referred, and the people those people referred, and the organizations today that came out of that, it's not who you know, it's who they know, right? So that's kind of how it started, and I believe that any company, any product, now you've got to be very, very careful, because if you go into a chapter and you start pitching your opportunity, you're going to get kicked out. They do not want you talking about the opportunity, but that doesn't mean if you ask good questions and you meet with people one-on-one afterwards and you find out that that person is looking for something and you share with them what you're up to, you'll end up with some distributors as well outside the chapter. You'll get referrals from people. But my experience has been many customers turn into distributors on their own. They just use it and they love it and they want to Share it with their family or with their friends. Maybe they want their product for free. You know, a way to get their product for free, get some income coming in to pay for their product. So I want to share with you a couple quick stories. So this is crazy. Some of you will relate to this because it happens to you all. How many of you have things that almost seem to be crazy coincidences that can't possibly be true? They happen to you every day. Raise your hand. Interesting. In this group, you're going to get a lot of that. And I'm going to share with you a theory that I have. I don't know if it's true or not. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do here is I'm going to give you a little quiz, but it's not a trick. There's no trick questions in this. So I'm not trying to trick you into anything. It's just literal. So I'd like you to draw 2 dots on your paper right next to each other, just 2 dots. And I want to ask you, how many connections are there between those 2 dots? Not a trick question. How many? 1. There's 1 connection between those 2 dots. So we'll go back to that in a minute. This stuff happens to me that I'm going to explain to you right now. It happens to me every other day. Things that aren't possible. So I'm at Phoenix College speaking to a group of young entrepreneurs. There's like 30 people in the room, and I'm standing in front of the room, and I'd just been on a trip. In fact, here's what happened. I flew in from Chicago to Arizona. I went to the bag belt, and my bag didn't come down the belt. And I waited, and it's Southwest Airlines, and that's very unusual. Your bags always come down the belt at Southwest Airlines. You just don't lose bags, but it never came down. And so I went and filled out the forms and left. 4 or 5 days later, my bag still hadn't shown up, and I wrote it off. I didn't think I'd ever see my bag again. Thursday night, that was on Sunday. Thursday night, I'm at Phoenix College, 30 students. I'm giving a little talk, and a guy that I haven't seen in a year is standing in the back doorway. His name's Joel. And I wave from the front of the room, like, "Hey, Joel." He goes, "Hey." And he comes over, and he goes, "Were you in New York last night?" I go, "No." He goes, "That's really weird because I came in on Delta Airlines and I was standing by the bag belt and there were bags coming down and I noticed a bag and I saw your name on it. And it was from New York. It was the flight I was on." Like, what? Not only, there's thousands of bags. He sees the bag. He sees the name on the bag. How many people do that? Seriously. And then the next night, he's in my talk at Phoenix College. That is not possible. But it happens to me every other day. Every other day. So I went down to the airport, and sure enough, there was my bag. Everybody draw 3 dots. 1, 2, 3. Just like boom, boom, in a triangle. How many connections are there between those dots? 3. So 2 dots, 1 connection. 3 dots, 3 connections. So you added 1 more dot and added 2 more connections. Are you with me? 1 dot, 2 connections. Now everybody write 4. 1 in a square. 1, 2, 3, 4. So how many connections? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 dots, 3 connections. 4 dots, 6 connections. We added 1 more dot and went from 3 connections to 6 connections. Do you see that? Added 1 more dot and went from 3 connections to 6 connections. Now everybody do 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And connect those and tell me how many connections there are. Thank you. Boy, you're fast. 10 connections. So we went from 4 dots, 6 connections, to 5 dots, 1 more, 10 connections. Every time you add a dot and you connect the dots, it exponentially increases the number of possible connections. Now imagine that we as people represent dots. And you wonder why people that have thousands of people in their Rolodex or in their contact manager that do a good job of connecting those people together have more opportunities. And that whole situation with Joel, the reason that stuff happens to me every other day is because those things are happening to me probably right here in this room. There's opportunities in this room that I haven't even discovered because we're in the room together. Some of you probably know my mom or my mom's mom, things like that happen. People that I've never met before. And there's opportunities that are created. The more people you add to your contact manager, the more possible opportunities you have for growing your organization. And it's exponential. It's exponential, the result of that. So that's why it's so important to connect the people in your organization, bring people together in your organization, introduce them to each other, but not just in your organization, outside your organization. Become a catalyst for connecting people. It's not linear. It's very multi-dimensional. Do you guys get that? So it's connecting the people in your organization with people they don't know that are not in your organization and getting as many of those lines going. That's what's going to create the biggest opportunities for you the quickest. And that's really where the networking, the opportunities that I've created through networking organizations. So I joined one chapter and I became a committed member of that chapter for 2 years. Every week I went to that chapter. Very, very rarely would I miss. And then what I would do is I would once in a while be a guest at another chapter, and then I encouraged my team and I explained to them the importance of joining a chapter and the opportunities that would be created, and then I encouraged them to find a chapter. Most of you, in most of the cities you live, anywhere in the world, there's multiple chapters that don't have somebody from your opportunity. Now, very important, number one, you cannot talk about your opportunity in that meeting. And I've had people say, well, Jordan, why should I meet? Why should I even go if I can't talk about my opportunity? That's very short-sighted. Your opportunities extend far beyond whether you can talk about your opportunity in that meeting. It's meeting people. It's getting those connections going. Do you all get that? Okay, good. Thank you, Robert. Your talk, by the way, was awesome yesterday. Thank you. And thanks for, yeah. So the one person you want to meet, I'm going to give you like 3 little things. They seem like really little things, but they're huge opportunities if you embrace them. They're very simple. The first thing, and they're powerful things that you can do in any situation, not just in networking groups, you want to ask the event coordinator, who are the 3 most well-networked people in the group? Would you introduce me? I never do a cold call. I've never done a cold call in my career in network marketing. I've never done a cold call. I don't like sales. I don't like cold calling. But what I do is I meet somebody and I ask them to introduce me to people. Then it's not a cold call. When there's an introduction, they feel an immediate connection to you because they know that person. So I ask for introductions. And I don't even ask for an agenda. I just say, who do I need to meet? This is what I do. Who do I need to meet? And they introduce me to the 3 most well-networked people in the group. And then I schedule an appointment with them to get together with them just to get to know them better. I'd like to get together with you and get to know what you do and learn more about that. I do that every day. I'm looking for those opportunities to meet key influential people, people that are well-networked. We're in network marketing, so let's get with people that are well-networked because we can share opportunities with each other. So the 3 biggest mistakes that people make when they're networking is, number 1, oh gosh, it's so painful. You guys have experienced it. Some of you have experienced it and you do it. I saw some of you doing it here last night. It's terrible. Don't do this when you're networking. Number 1, biggest mistake, pitching your opportunity. Stop pitching your opportunity. It's kind of distasteful. It doesn't land very. How many of you have been at a networking meeting and somebody starts pitching your opportunity the first? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's just not comfortable, you know? So hold on to that. Just hold that back. Get to know them. Ask them questions about them. Learn as much about, if they ask you about you, if you give them something, give them a phrase or a sentence and then go right back to them. And really learn as much about them as you can. When you walk away, you should feel like you really know them. Be really curious. Write the word down, curious. Be curious. Be interested. Write the word down, interested. Be interested. The first thing, don't pitch your opportunity. I was at a networking meeting, and this guy was with an electric power network marketing company, and I met him and shook his hand, and his name was Phil. I said, Phil, nice to meet you. He said, nice to meet you too. I said, Phil, what do you do? Oh my God, I shouldn't have said that. I mean, I was cornered for the next, just tell me a little bit, but don't pitch your whole opportunity. Okay. Number 2. Second thing that you don't need to do, because it's not a good use of your time, is just talking to everyone. When you go into a networking meeting, if there's 20 people there or 50 or 100, pick 1 or 2 or at the very most 3 people and get to know them. You don't need to meet everybody, because why don't you need to meet everybody if you're meeting the right people? Why? Because they know the others, right? They'll introduce you to the others. So just pick 2 or 3 and get to know them really well. Get their contact information or their business card. You give them yours if you want to. I personally get people's business cards, but I typically don't give my card. I don't. Because what I do is then I'm proactive and I contact them. But that's not I wouldn't say that's a black or white thing. I just personally don't give out business cards typically. And then the third thing is in the B&I environment, it's really frowned upon to go from group to group to group to group. Like not joining a group, not committing and paying your $300. You can go as a guest 2 or 3 times before they ask for your money. You can visit 2 or 3 chapters, but the thing you don't want to do, and there's people that will do this and they will be banned from the group, is never become a member, just become a guest and go guest event, guest event, guest event, hopping across the country being guests at chapter meetings. You will get kicked out of it and you'll be banned forever from it. You don't want to do that. And they find out really fast because those networks are really, really tight. Are you with me? Okay, join one, get to know the people in the group. You can then become a guest, or not a guest, but what do they call them? What? Visitor. Not a visitor, that's not the word. A sub, thank you, a sub. You can become a sub when somebody else at another meeting can't make it. You can sub for them. And you get to talk about your product. But you want to join a chapter after you found the chapter that you want to join. 60-second commercial. I'm not going to get into a lot of specifics because most of this, my guess is that most of you can already do these pretty well. But there's 4 different ways of doing your 60-second commercial. And I recommend mixing it up. Don't do your 60-second commercial the same each time. Again, the reason I thought of, this is what I thought of. I thought 4,000 chapters. Now today we're in 1,000, my company is in 1,000 chapters out of the 4,000. That's leverage right there because every chapter, every week, there's somebody from my team giving a 60-second commercial to a group of anywhere from 10 to 50 people. Every single week in 1,000 chapters. And every week we have new customers and new distributors coming in as a result of that. You see that? Huge leverage. It's like having imagine this. It's like having presentations that are set up for you. You don't have to get a room. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to set anything up. It's already done. You just get your team to go. One person in each chapter. And like I say, there's not one single company that I know of that is saturated in B&I. In fact, most companies don't have anyone in B&I, Business Network International. You might have to make a few phone calls. If you go to bni.com, they list most of the chapters, but some of that information isn't completely up to date. It's a very, very powerful leverage strategy. 60-second commercial, 4 different ways to do it, and I mix it up. Some weeks I just explain what we do. I explain the product at the meeting. I just explain it. Some weeks I tell stories. Like I might have a really great success story, not an opportunity story, but a product story. And you guys get those through your company all the time and through the experiences you have with your distributors. When you get a powerful success story, share that at the meeting in 60 seconds. That's a powerful thing to do. Those success stories will carry you a long way in terms of creating those opportunities. The third thing I do is testimonials. Testimonials. And if you're a giver in the group, if you look for opportunities to refer business to other members of the group, guess what they're going to do? They're going to start referring people to you. Now, I know somebody that needs your product. And then they connect you with that person. They'll even connect you on a phone call. It's phenomenal. It's the easiest way to build a business. The quickest way. Some people look at this networking as old school, like the slow way. I'm going to tell you right now, I believe the slow way is the fast way. If you want to create a long-term sustainable residual income stream, the slow way is the fast way, in my opinion. Number 4, I love this one, is just show and tell. Show and tell. That's where you have your product and you pass it around. If you guys have a product that you can let people sample it, when you do your 60-second commercial or when about once every few weeks you get to do a 20-minute presentation. Bring product for everyone so they can all try it and all try it together. If it's that kind of product, if it's the ability to do that. Yes, sir. The problem is, I'd have to give you one that's not my company, but yeah, I mean, the testimonial? Well, let me just say this. I'm not going to get into specifics on that right now. That's all I'm going to say is that take a testimonial that's on one of your videos or a personal testimonial and just share it from your heart. That's it. Your company has testimonials. Share one. Me giving the testimonial for your company or anyone else's company isn't going to be the same as a real testimonial. Does that make sense? You guys all, raise your hand if you don't have a testimonial in your company. If you don't, there's a problem. Okay? Because your company should be filled with testimonials. Take one of those testimonials and share it with the group. You know, heck, when you do your 20-minute presentation, bring the person with you bring them with you. Let them give the testimonial versus being secondhand or if you have a personal one. All right. triple your opportunities for growth. This is extremely powerful. When you join your chapter, most of the chapters have what they call a visitor host, right? Visitor host in there. Become a visitor host. Well, the visitor host meets every guest that comes to the meetings, and every week, depending on the meeting, there's anywhere from 3 to 10 or 15 guests. You're the person that greets the person. You're the person that gets their business card. It's an opportunity to connect with people. So what I would do is, there was a point where for about 6 months I was a visitor host, and I would get their card, and I'm very generous in terms of like looking for ways to provide value to them without expecting anything in return. These cards, now it's very challenging for me to be a member of a chapter right now because I'm in a different city every 4 days. But when I was getting started for the first few years, for the first 3 years, I was at one chapter for 3 years, 2.5 years, and the next chapter for about a year. And then I started traveling a lot more. But I would get people's business cards, and I would, sometimes I'd send them a handwritten note, and I'd put a little Starbucks card in there saying, thanks for coming to the meeting. We hope you'd choose to join our chapter. We'd love to have you. Stuff like that. Just examples. I'll give you some. This was the 702 helicopters, the 2 flight instructors and the guy that owns the school, guy and his wife that own the school. But these are the kinds of cards that I would get in a meeting. Spring Preserves. This lady runs the Spring Preserves here in Vegas. And these are people that this is a neighbor of mine, John Travis. He's involved with an organization called Vistage. Ferrara Cafe in New York City. I met the owner there. I just introduced myself, and I don't talk about my business. This is a guy that sold me a car. This guy, I went into his cigar place in Park Forest, Illinois. He owns the cigar place. And I just get his card, and I shake his hand, and I say, how long have you had this place? Wow, nice place. Tell me more about it. How did you get it started? How long have you had it? And how'd you get into the cigar business? You know what I'm saying? Just creating those connections. So yeah, so that's kind of how I start. And then I get to know the people, and I develop that rapport. It sounds pretty easy, doesn't it? Develop the rapport. And then I say, just like the Best Buy, I say, remember the come here, I want to show you something? I call them on the phone and I say, would you mind if I shared something with you and just kind of get your thoughts on it? A business idea? Yeah, sure. And I do ask a few questions and things like that. Tim's training is like phenomenal. Is Tim here right now? I don't think he is. Is he? No? What did you guys think of Tim's training last night? Man. I'd forgotten how good he was. I mean, he is so good. And I remember seeing him. I haven't seen Tim in 13 years, but I still consider him a close friend because he's just such a cool guy, And I felt like I hadn't seen him. I felt like it was yesterday that I saw the guy. Did you have a question, Jules?
Yeah. I just wanted you to clarify yesterday when you were telling your helicopter story, and you were condensing it. So you said, you took that helicopter ride, and then you ended up signing him up. I heard some people thinking that you recruited him on the spot.
No, well, I didn't sign him up in the helicopter while I was trying to hover. Oh, sorry. I talked about signing up the people that own the helicopter school, but I didn't talk about how that happened and when I signed. Did I sign them up on the spot, or did I sign them up later? I actually signed them up 2 days ago in the school itself. While we were flying, that was not a great time to pull out the computer and try and, take care of business. But we talked, because we literally were together for many, many, many hours over a 3-day period flying in this helicopter, right? And so across the country. So he asked me a lot of questions. I answered his questions. I helped him to kind of envision some possibilities and some opportunities, and he started brainstorming a little bit. And then when we landed, he asked for some more information, and so I gave him our company magazine. He read through that. His wife read through it. His wife signed up for our product to try the product, for 3 days. She used it, and she loved it, and then we signed him up a couple of days ago. So I haven't even trained him yet. I mean, I just literally signed him up and left, because I was getting ready to do this stuff. So, okay, choosing the right group. I look for groups that have 30 to 50 members if possible. That's number one, 30 to 50 members. Less than that, there's just not as much activity. The second thing, ideally 30 to 50. Second thing, while you're there as a guest, make sure there's lots of referrals. Like people are bringing referrals and there's guests in the room. There's referrals being passed between the members and there's guests in the room. That means there's a lot of activity and life in the group. You want to do that. You want to make sure they have a giving philosophy. You want to make sure that the philosophy of the group, because there's other groups besides B&I, and some of them are more giving than others, but you want to kind of get that sense that it's an organization that really cares about, they're connected and they care about each other. And number 4, I mentioned this, lots of guests, 5 to 10 guests per meeting. So number 1, 30 to 50 members. Number 2, lots of referrals. Number 3, giving philosophy. And number 4, lots of guests. The difference between referrals and guests is referrals means that the members are passing referrals back and forth to each other. Guests are people that are visiting the chapter for the first time. If there's no guests there, I'd come one more time, and if there's no guests or 1 or 2, then I'd join another chapter. You want one where there's a lot of guests there. Okay. The most important question that you can ask yourself in networking, I believe, is who does business, write this down, who does business with people who would do business with you? Who does business with people who would do business with you? So you want to meet those people. Think about, like, and we don't have time to get into all the detail of this, but what I like to think about is who are the people in life that do business with the people that would do business with you? You want to meet those people. That almost can become a goal. And if you meet those people, that's an opportunity because they're connected with lots of people. I'm talking about ways to accelerate the growth of your group. Because some people work their business for 3 years and they get incremental growth, a little bit of growth. Some people get exponential growth. Why is that? It's because who they're meeting. It's the connections they make along the way. Rules for networking. I'm going to go through these very rapidly. Number 1. Oh man, I've seen network marketers be so nasty. Most of you aren't. Most of you are really nice people. But number 1, be kind. Be kind. Even if somebody's not interested in your business, don't make them wrong. Don't badmouth them. Don't make them feel like they're stupid for not doing it. Because most of those people, it's just the timing is off. So be nice to people. Be respectful of wherever they are. Acknowledge wherever they are. If somebody says, you know, I don't have the money right now, say, I can understand that. Man, I was that way for a long time. I didn't have the money. Acknowledge that. And be respectful. They say, I just can't do it right now. I really want to do it, but I can't do it right now. Well, when do you think you might be able to do it? Well, I'll be able to do it in 6 months. Oh, 6 months? What, are you stupid? No, I don't do that. All right, I don't do that. Number 2, be generous. Number 2, be generous. I try not to make people wrong. Number 2, so what I do is I look for opportunities to over-tip a little bit. You know, look for opportunities where you wouldn't normally tip to give somebody a little tip. What you send out comes back. Right? Like, yeah, so you want to, yeah. And you know what? Send somebody a handwritten note with a Starbucks card telling them thank you for just looking at your opportunity. Just for looking. Not for, even the ones that aren't interested. What's going to happen? Number 3, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Be patient. Be patient. People are not on your schedule. They're on their own. Number 4, be interested. We talked about that. Number 5, be memorable. Do things, little things that are going to cause them to like. There's some people in this room that can do really crazy tricks with their tongue. That's not what I'm talking about, really. All right, but you want to do some things that will allow you to be a little bit memorable. You know who you are. I've just seen it. That's all. I've just seen it. And the last thing is, if you want to make it happen, schedule it. And I want to talk about this for just a second. This was a huge defining moment in my network marketing career. I'd been in 11 companies in 10 years, never signed anybody up. I would talk to 2 or 3 people. They would be negative. They'd give me a reason why it wouldn't work, or only the people at the top make money, or it's a pyramid. I would get down, and I would quit. And I did that over and over again with many, many different companies. I found out something that when I got that I just needed to put my blinders on and focus and start scheduling appointments with people, get my calendar full. I can tell somebody when they come to me and they say they're not having the success they want, if I say to them, open your calendar, let me see your calendar, their calendar is empty. And it's always empty. You want to get your business going for the next 2 to 3 years, fill your calendar with appointments to meet with people one-on-one, 2-on-1s, your opportunity meeting, conference calls, getting guests on conference calls, following up. Fill your training, fill your calendar during the time that you're scheduled to work your business. If you're working your business 4 hours a day, and you tell me you're working 4 hours a day, and I look at your calendar, I should see appointments in every single minute of those 4 hours. That's working your business. Now, how do you get the beach money? You do that long enough until there's leaders in your organization that don't even know who you are, and they're building it for themselves, not for you. You do that long enough, however long that takes. It might be a year. For some of you, it might be 5 years. But at some point, there were other people that will grab the baton and run with it. In the beginning, it's all you. Your check is about you in the beginning. But ultimately, you'll have people. But if you're having to do everything, in the beginning, you will have to do everything. But if your business is only at arm's reach, then you're going to be limited. And if you have to have your hand in everything, so you're looking for people that will do it on their own. And you plug them into the system.